He's accused of killing a Charlotte County woman in 1990, and he's currently on death row for the murder of another woman in Newark, Ohio, a decade later. In between, he brutally attacked a third female, leaving her within inches of her life. But the violent tirades of Roland Davis Sr. may not end there. Investigators in Southwest Florida are now taking a hard look at the life of Davis and the potential that he could be linked to other missing persons cases in our community.
Obviously, because Mr. Davis has been involved in at least 2 homicides and an attempted homicide of a prostitute in Columbus, Ohio, he is on our radar for unsolved cases of missing women or murdered women, murdered females. That would include re-examining any potential role he may have had here in Charlotte County in the 1995 Christine Flahive missing person case. We also have a 1980 found recovered female bones on South 41 in South Punta Gorda, as well as cases that we've become aware of, unsolved cases in the Lee County area.
Detectives know for a fact that during the 1980s and 90s, Davis spent a good deal of time in and around North Fort Myers, specifically at the now-closed Mayfair Lounge on Old 41. His acquaintances of choice were bikers and prostitutes, and those relationships are what detectives would like to delve deeper into.
We're interested in finding out anyone who knew him. His nickname was Rollie, or sometimes some people called him Manson. He was into motorcycles. He hung out in motorcycle bars, but specifically the Mayfair Lounge in North Fort Myers is of keen interest to us.
Cold case investigators are currently reviewing the files of missing women who led high-risk lifestyles during that 20-year time period and what relationship, if any, they had with Davis. The key at this point is reaching out to anyone who knew Davis, had relationships with Davis, or may have seen him in the company of women who today are still missing. Detectives say they also want to hear from anyone who was victimized by Davis back in the day and did file a police report, because there could be details and information that could be revisited and help establish a more firm timeline of where he was and who he may have had violent encounters with.
Perhaps there's somebody that may have seen him with a female that disappeared, or may have heard a story, or may have observed something, or had a conversation with him at some point in time that would be of interest to us.
In November of 2020, Charlotte County detectives were able to link Davis to the 1990 murder of Sharon Gill. Davis had been working for a landscaping company when he crossed paths with Gill, who he's accused of stabbing 39 times. 10 years later, Davis was in Ohio when he stabbed an 86-year-old woman to death. It was years before he was linked to that case, but eventually a jury found him guilty of that crime. But the violence didn't end there.
In 2003, he was arrested in Columbus, Ohio. He had just picked up a prostitute off the street, had taken her for a ride, and beat her severely. Should have probably been a homicide, but she managed to escape and report it to the police, and they caught him a very short period of time later.
His guilt in that case was indisputable.
He was working as an ice cream truck delivery, and he had the ice cream truck that he had picked the prostitute up in had her blood in the truck and also all over his pants.
Given his propensity for violence, detectives say there is good reason to take a closer look at Davis's travels and relationships. During a jailhouse interview with him, Davis was less than forthcoming with details, which is why it's so important to hear from anyone who knew Davis back in the day.
So the logic, of course, for us is he responsible for any other murders between Southwest Florida and Ohio, or anywhere else in the country for that matter?
There's a very good probability that people may remember Davis from his days in North Fort Myers and could possibly provide information that they've been sitting on for decades without realizing that they could be the key to solving a cold case.
People's lives change, people mature. We find that often in cold cases, investigations, and their worldview changes, their behavior changes, and so what they were doing perhaps back in 1990, they wouldn't dream of doing today in 2021. And that's something that is quite common in cold case investigations.
Take a good look at this photo. You may remember him as Rollie or Manson, a name he frequently went by. Crime Stoppers is ready to take your call with any information you have on Davis and possible connections that could help another family finally get the answers they've waited years for. For Southwest Florida Crime Stoppers, I'm Trish Routte.